Yeah, it's funny. I always joke with people and tell them my career path has been kind of two, maybe not schizophrenic, but like two different specific things. So one, you mentioned the consumer products thing. That was created products and sold them to retailers like Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's.
Mm.
Built those companies up and sold them. All the while, I was still doing real estate on the side. So real
What
estate
type
is what
of products?
mostly sporting goods.
Oh, okay.
So we initially had this is probably a conversation for a different day, but we had a manufacturing of products that we licensed from the NCAA, NASCAR, and Disney. And so we manufactured like golf towels, as an example. If you ever play golf and you have a golf towel with a whatever University of Georgia logo or Alabama logo, we made those towels and sold them. So a lot of sporting goods manufactured, shipped here, and then we would go sell those to the big box retailers. And then with NASCAR, we did a line of barbecue grill accessories.
Mm.
So like a barbecue grill spatula and a barbecue grill lighter and things like that with NASCAR logos on them. So we sold those to all the big retailers, Walmart, Target, Home Depot, Lowe's, Bass Pro Shops, all that kind of stuff. So eventually I sold two of those companies that I'd started. But the whole time I was doing those, I was still owning and buying real estate on the side.
Got it.
And then once I sold that last company, I completely focused back on real estate, which is, what I do full time. So, out of my 25 years, I guess, of since graduating from college, 26 years, there was probably a 7-year stint there, which was primarily focused on consumer products. So the rest of the time has been real estate. I've only worked for someone else for 2 years of that time. And that was when the last real estate crash happened, 08, 09.
Mm.
And we were doing new construction at that time. And so as the market tanked, we went down with it. And we're fortunate we were able to sell off all our properties and didn't have to file bankruptcy, but needed a job. So went to work for a buddy of mine for 2 years and then continued to build the real estate back up on the side and jump back into that. So,
Wow.
Yeah. So, what you read in my bio is all accurate, but it's over the course of the last 20 years.
Yeah.
So long time, again, started with one flip at a time. Eventually, I had a couple rentals, decided I wanted to build that up, built up to 13 single family rentals. And then we had 3 short-term rentals. And those were all in resort areas as well. So that's another shift that we made is I think when the short-term rental market was really taking off, you could buy a house, 45 minutes away from anything that seemed like a travel destination, update it really nice, and people would rent it. And then it seemed like over the last year and a half, for us at least, the properties that we had, like in a resort destination, beach, lake, a tourist attraction, Orlando, something like that, those were still doing really well. But the ones that were just kind of, outside of a city area weren't doing as well. And so we focused primarily on those resort, lakefront properties and gated community golf courses, things like that. So we did a few of those. And then, our flipping business grew to, we were doing 100 houses a year for a few years. So got really busy. This was 2018 to 22. Really busy with that.
Were you selling all those to retail buyers?
Probably 50-50. Half of them we would rehab and sell to retail buyers. The other half we would sell to other investors.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow. So we really became a marketing company. We were doing all outbound marketing. So we weren't buying anything off the MLS. Everything was through direct mail and pay-per-click, pay-per-lead, bandit signs, cold calling, texting, all those different outbound marketing channels we were utilizing to find properties that we could buy off market. And we had 9 people, it wasn't just me and my wife at that time. We'd built up to where we had 9 people on our team, and it was great. It was a great time in the real estate market. Properties were selling really well. And so we grew that, again, continuing to build and buy rental properties for ourselves along the way. So when we would find a property, we would evaluate it for all the different avenues. We would look at it and say, is this something we want to keep as a rental for ourselves? Is this something we want to do a short-term rental based on where it's located and the purchase price? Is this something we want to flip ourselves, or is this something we want to sell to another investor? and just move it quick. Sometimes we would just clean it out and touch it up and then sell it. Other times we just sell it as is to another investor.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the path that we took. And then after 2022, the market kind of slowed down as far as buying again, because it became a seller's market. Interest rates went up and things slowed down. A lot of the hedge funds quit buying. So prices, when hedge funds were buying, they were paying crazy high prices, which made all of the sellers think that they could get such a high price for their property. And so prices continue to go up and up and up, which slowed us down a little bit. So at the end of 22, beginning of 2023, that's when I started noticing that all of the stuff that I'd done in the past, new construction as well as flipping houses, was what I call transactional. And with the exception of the rental properties, the other stuff that I was doing was primarily transactional. So if it was new construction, you find a lot, you build a house, you sell the house. Now you have to go find another lot to do another deal. Same thing with flipping houses. When we do all this outbound marketing and we find a property, we rehab the house and we sell it and we make good money on it. Well, now we got to go find another house. So all of that business was transactional. And I realized I need to do more building of long-term wealth, more like rental properties, whether it's long-term, short-term, and then eventually into the self-storage, something where I can do the work up front, buy the property, but then once I buy it and have it occupied and managed, someone managing it, now it continues to pay me again and again and again for as long as I want to keep the property. So it was about that 22, 23 timeframe where we started focusing more on getting rentals, and we still do flipping and still do a lot of the transactional stuff, but I'm trying to focus my long-term efforts on more wealth generating, long-term kind of stuff.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. And there's so many parallels between your kind of story and realizations and my own. We flipped about 75 houses around Chicago, so nowhere near the scale that you were at. It felt like a lot of scale at the time. There's a lot going on. Yeah, there's a lot going on, and we kind of moved into higher end homes too because we thought the numbers looked more appealing and didn't realize some of the downside of that as well. But then same realization, 2016, I was like, man, if I just had kept half the properties we flipped from 2011 to 2016, I'd be in a really good position right now and even better today. But so wanted to build up long-term wealth or long-term cash flow, and so got into rental properties at that point. But I'm kind of curious for you, what made you land on self-storage out of all the other options out there as interest rates were going up? I've read a lot about the commercial space being really impacted heavily. Is self-storage do you feel like it's more insulated and the best option of all the commercial options out there?
Yes, I do. I actually, you asked this question a moment ago as well, but I've kind of always done things backwards for some reason. Maybe it's just because I'm confident because I know construction. And so that part of it doesn't scare me as much as it does a lot of people who don't have experience in construction. But I started flipping houses before I started buying rental properties and before I started selling to other investors, wholesaling or selling to other investors. Most people who get into real estate, and certainly those who scale like we did, usually start with the easiest, which is wholesaling, and then going to rental properties at a small scale, and then go to flipping houses. But again, I guess since I'd done a lot of construction already, that didn't bother me. Same thing with self-storage. So my first self-storage deal is a ground up, Class A, 3-story, climate controlled self-storage facility. Wow. So again, a lot of people, when they start in self-storage, they'll go find an existing facility, a smaller facility, buy it, add some value, raise rents, and then keep it for a few years, sell it, and then move up. I went straight for the hardest one and the most time consuming one right off the bat. But I think for me, again, once I realized that I needed to do more cash flow generating activities, more long-term wealth building, and not spend all of my time and energy on the transactional stuff, I started looking at both multifamily and self-storage. And we actually had a property under contract in San Antonio, Texas. We're in Atlanta, as you mentioned, but we had a multifamily property in San Antonio put down our earnest money. We were in our due diligence, and it was 187 units, so it was a big project. But flew out there, met with a general contractor, walked all 187 units, and as it turned out, the seller was misleading us on all of the information they had given us.
Oh. Was this multifamily or self-storage?
Multifamily.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, so it was a 187 unit apartment complex.
Wow.
They said it was 65% occupied. It was actually about 50% occupied. Two of the buildings, they had a flood, some pipes burst, and they didn't correct it. And so the whole inside of two whole buildings was completely molded and mildew. They hadn't shared that with us, so it was going to have to be torn back to the studs. There was a murder at the property the month before we came. They didn't share that information. So anyway, we bailed on that. But I was looking at multifamily and self-storage at the same time. And one of the things that I recognized with self-storage is most of the people who go to their self-storage facility, they go there once a month or once every few months. There's one toilet oftentimes, sometimes not a toilet at all, but in a facility like ours, we have one male and one female toilet, and that's it. So you're not having to repair toilets all the time. You don't have people living there all the time. So therefore there's not as much upkeep. You don't have water heaters to worry about. You don't have a bunch of roofs to worry about. So I loved the model of self-storage because again, people aren't there all day, every day. You're not having to take care of toilets and issues where people call you. And when I was managing my own properties, my own single family properties, I would get a call at 10 o'clock at night on a Friday that the water heater is not working. And I'm, going to try to fix a water heater. And so I eventually learned, hire a property manager, let them manage it. And then I don't have to take those calls. So I did that. But with self-storage, you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to deal with any of that kind of late night calls or anything. So I started looking for self-storage properties again to buy and add value, and just never could find anything that seemed to pencil. So actually bought these two pieces of property that were single family homes beside each other on 4.5 acres. And I did my due diligence. I realized that the county wanted it to go commercial. The future land use map, we're probably getting into more detail than we need to, but the future land use map showed it as a future commercial property. And so I was able to get it rezoned for a special use permit to do self-storage, and then get everything approved and build the new self-storage facility.
Interesting. So is that 800? I mean, that's all 800 units then in that facility?
Yeah. 865 units. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
3-story. It's big, 115,000 square feet. So it's a big 3-story brick, the kind of thing that you see going up these days. Not so much the 1-story old school self-storage, just looks more like an office building.
Okay. And this is in Atlanta?
It's outside of Atlanta in Lawrenceville, Georgia, about 30 minutes north of Atlanta.
Okay. Cool. Wow. That's massive. And self-storage has always interested me, and for the reasons that you just outlined. I think the lower maintenance costs and headaches and all that just is so appealing. The thing that always I had questions about, and I'm sure you've thought through this, is it feels like it's sort of like a luxury niche, like I imagine during the Great Depression, there wasn't a lot of people storing extra stuff and paying, for it. So it's like my concern around self-storage is, do you feel like there's ever a point, like if the economy shifts and people are really like cutting back, that this could be something that they cut back on? Or do you think it's here to stay?
Yeah, historically, that has not been the case. So in the last downturn, I have a report, and of 21 different commercial asset classes, self-storage was the one that was impacted the least during the 08, 09, 2010 timeframe. And I think now what they've determined, so in self-storage, they go by square foot per capita demand. So as an example, right now, the square foot per capita in the United States is 10 square feet per person. So you need 10 square feet of storage. I need 10 square feet. Everybody in the United States needs 10 square feet of storage according to the demand, which is very interesting. Now, if you buy if you lease a 10 by 10 unit, that's 100 square feet. So that takes up for 10 of us. So it's not like every single person in the United States is using self-storage. But based on that, we look for areas where certainly the population is high enough, but also where that demand is very low. So as an example, in Lawrenceville, where our property is, our current supply was at 2.3 square feet per person. And the national average is 10 square feet per person. So we're way below what that area demands. And it's a very high population, brand new Walmart next door. So, high traffic area. So we look at some of those things when we're doing our due diligence to say, is there a demand in this particular area? Is there high enough population? But it's gone up over the last 10 years from 5 square feet per person to 7 to 10, which is what it is now. And I think, as over the course of the last few years, as prices have gone up, people have decided to stay in the house that they were in. They're still acquiring stuff. The overall market has been pretty good as far as people making money and having money to spend. But they're not moving up in houses or buying new houses because of the higher interest rates, and it's a seller's market. So they have excess money, and they're buying more stuff, but they don't have room to store it. And so they're using self-storage facilities. And again, a lot of times they'll go in and pay for a self-storage facility, and they'll put their stuff in there. They might not go back for 6 months or 8 months at all, to even check on it. So it has been, historically, it's been, the least impacted by the ups and downs of the real estate market. The lending changed a little bit over the last couple of years. Banks used to lend 80% of cost, and then they dropped down to 70, and then they dropped down to 60. It started going back up now. We're working with banks now who are looking at 75, 80% loan to cost again. But there was a slowdown for about a year and a half, 23, 24, and now it's moving back in the right direction. So we're not too concerned about it based on what we've seen historically. It's pretty resilient compared to the other commercial asset classes.